Indiana is historically among the bottom states in voter participation, particularly for young voters. Has your campaign engaged young voters during this election cycle, and what can be done to increase voting in our elections?
You know, and I'm going to answer that by saying that young voters have engaged my campaign. I have seen a large number of young people come to me, whether it be at a county fair or somewhere else where I'm meeting voters, and young people 18, 19, 20 will come up to me and they'll either say, I wasn't old enough to vote for you in 2020, but I'm voting for you this time. And it's because they'll tell you that the Republicans and the Democrats, they've listened to them spout stuff and nothing changes. And they believe that maybe there's an opportunity for change. And they see that in our campaign. And I think that that's important. And I think that that's an opportunity for the new voters to make an impact.
We have. It's not easy, so I'm not going to sit and pretend it is easy. We are 50 out of 50th on voter turnout, so we even have those who are registered that just don't go vote. Part of that is, I believe, when you have a supermajority for as long as we've had it, a lot of people are like, what's the point? We're very gerrymandered, so then I hear people in communities say, what's the point? Sometimes there's no one to vote for on the ballot in their political affiliations, so again, what's the point? And so too many of those end up that we're 50 out of 50th. We've also made it very difficult at the State House where they continue to make it harder and harder to vote. And we just went through that the last session with transportation. So we can't get any further down, but it's still a huge problem. But the young voters are hard to reach. And many of them are exhausted by what they see in politics. They do not like the extremism. They do not like the divisiveness. They do not like the lack of willingness to be bipartisan. They don't like it. And so they're telling us, like, we don't want any part of that because we don't like it. And so we've tried to reach them through mechanisms, whether it's their social media platforms, such as TikTok, which we're doing the right way, but that's been a huge reach for us. Finding leaders, young leaders that have a reach and are influencers has been empowering for us. Getting people to have their own mini campaigns for us has been very impactful in that age, but also giving them a reason of how this impacts your life. I mean, we tell them, the choice is clear. I mean, do you want your own family planning and control over your body, or do you want the government to do that for you? I mean, the choice is clear, and especially the birth control conversation gets a lot of young kids coming up for air when I'm like, the bill's written, do you want to save your birth control or not? You know, that's always interesting. The cost of housing, their cost of education, they're like, I'll never be able to afford a house. And I'm like, that is your vote. You know, or I hear, you know, that my education, I'm in debt forever. That is your vote. And so having conversations with them, getting into their communities, but also just reminding them of why that importance is there, and that if we don't exercise that right to vote, we could likely lose that right to vote. And so I know sometimes it seems so, you know, just so absent from what they're thinking about, but, you know, trying to make those connections. And I love talking to our young people. I mean, part of that is my background, but I also learn so much from them as far as what that generation and their generations are feeling and the responsibility to that. So we're working hard in that space, but it's not easy. So I'm not going to sit and say we've figured it all out, but they're phone banking for us, they're door knocking for us, they're giving me $5 when they can and $20 when they can, which I am very humbled by. But, you know, we continue to work with them to say what works, what doesn't work, and get into that space. You know, universities are huge. So we've been talking to folks on the university campuses, but also getting into neighborhoods where kids have a lot to say, young people have a lot to say, so we need to be good listeners.
I've been lucky since I'm, I guess, not your cardboard cutout politician. Came from, I call it the real world, and got involved in politics later on. That's attracted a broad group of entrepreneurs, ethnicities, age levels with a heavy emphasis on young people. because they see something different. And I think to engage youth to vote is going to be similar in terms of how you engage youth to maybe be more interactive in their own decisions they need to make from the time they're thinking about it, especially by the time you're done with high school. To me, we're a state that you've got many ways to vote. You can do it early. You got about 12, 13 ways to ask for an absentee ballot. Any party that's not, or that is afraid of engaging a broader array of people into the system probably needs to look at its own policies to see why that may not be the case. All I can say in my political campaigns, I've been blessed to where I've had a broad array of people that have been willing to be part of it. So I'll probably look there to see what you can do to parlay that into policy that hopefully would get some of the disturbingly low voter participation rates up to a higher level.